Okay, we'd like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's meeting. Looks like we got the amen corner back there in the back. Everybody's sitting on the back corner, so must be all be Presbyterians. Anyhow, before we start, I'm a Presbyterian, so I can say that. I'm not saying anything demeaning about anybody's denomination, although it wouldn't bother me if I did. We'd like to ask in that vein, please everyone bow your head for a moment of silent meditation. And thank you. Mr. Minges.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Our next agenda meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, June 12th, 2019 at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
We have 3 items on our supplemental agenda. Item number 1, docket number 2019-169E. This item concerns Duke Energy Progress, LLC's establishment of a net energy metering tariff filed in compliance with House Bill 3659.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Howard.
Thank you. House Bill 3659, the South Carolina Energy Freedom Act, was signed into law by the governor on May the 16th, 2019. In order to comply with what is now Act 82, Duke Energy Progress has filed its Renewable Net Metering Rider, RNM-7, with a requested effective date of May 16, 2019, the date on which DEP must offer net energy metering in accordance with the Act. The tariff is substantially similar to the previous effective Renewable Net Metering Rider, with changes merely to align with the tariff with SC Code annotated 58-40-20B and 58-40-10C as amended. The Office of Regulatory Staff recommends approval. I move we approve the tariff, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Howard's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you.
Supplemental item number 2, docket number 2019-170E. This item concerns Duke Energy Carolina's establishment of a net energy metering tariff filed in compliance with House Bill 3659.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Urban.
Duke Energy Carolinas has submitted a revised net energy metering tariff in order to provide net energy metering to Duke Energy Carolinas customers in accordance with House Bill 3659. DEC reached the 2% net energy metering, or what we call NEM, threshold set forth in Act 236 in July of 2018. By the Commission's approval of the joint petition and order number 2018-633, net energy metering and DEC was extended until March 15, 2019. Since that time, DEC has not offered NEM to new participants. Just recently, on May the 16th, 2019, Governor McMaster signed into law H 3659, which amends Code Section 58-40-20, subsection B, to provide the following, and I quote, "An electrical utility shall make net energy metering available to all customer generators who apply before June 1, 2021, according to the terms and conditions provided to all parties in Commission Order Number 2015-194. Customer generators who apply for net metering after the effective date of this Act, but before June 1, 2021, including subsequent owners of the customer generator facility or premises, may continue net energy metering service as provided for in Commission Order Number 2015-194 until May 31, 2029. Given the expiration of the March 15, 2019 extension period for net energy metering, the company does not currently have an approved tariff in place that would apply to customers requesting NEM beginning May 16 of 2019, the effective date of the new law. While H 3659 requires electrical utilities to make NEM available to customers after the effective date of the Act, the company does not believe it can offer NEM without an approved tariff in place. Accordingly, Duke Energy Carolinas has filed its renewable net metering rider with a requested effective date of May 16, 2019. This tariff is substantially similar to the previously effective renewable net metering rider, with changes merely to align the tariff with South Carolina Code Section 58-40-20, subsection B, and 58-40-10, subsection C as amended. The Office of Regulatory Staff recommends approval of this, and I therefore move its adoption.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Irvin's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries.
Supplemental item number 3, docket number 2019-177E. This item concerns Dominion Energy South Carolina's revision to its net energy metering tariff.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Belzer.
I've got a motion, but on this item, please. And it's going to be repetitive because we've had 3 similar filings that needed acting upon, and the background is substantially similar, so I apologize for the repetition to the audience. But on May 16, 2019, the governor signed into law House Bill 3659, which is now designated as Act 82. This act, known as the South Carolina Energy Freedom Act, amends South Carolina Code, and particularly Section 58-40-20B, to provide in part, and I quote, "An electrical utility shall make net energy metering available to all customer generators who apply before June 1st, 2021, according to the terms and conditions provided to all parties in Commission Order Number 2015-194. Customer generators who apply for net metering after the effective date of this Act but before June 1st, 2021, including subsequent owners of the customer generator facility or premises, may continue net energy metering service as provided for in Commission Order Number 2015-194 until May 31st, 2029, and that's the end of the quoted section. In response to Act 82, Dominion has filed revisions to its net metering tariff, and those revisions are before us today. First, Dominion has filed to rename its existing tariff, which is entitled Rider to Retail Rates Net Energy Metering for Renewable Energy Facilities, as the renamed Rider to Retail Rates Second Net Energy Metering for Renewable Energy Facilities, and has revised the tariff to reflect its closure effective May 4th, 2019. In docket 2019-2-E, Dominion informed this commission that it expected to achieve the 2% net energy metering threshold in April 2019, and that it would continue to accept applications through May 3rd, 2019. Thereafter, by correspondence dated May 16th, 2019, related to docket 2014-246E, Dominion notified this commission that it had achieved the 2% net energy metering threshold set forth in then-current state law. Next, to conform to Act 82, Dominion has revised its old tariff, known as Rider to Retail Rates Net Energy Metering for Renewable Energy Facilities, and has renamed it Rider to Retail Rates Third Net Energy Metering for Renewable Energy Facilities. This conforming tariff is similar to Dominion's previously approved net metering rider, with changes to align the tariff with the provisions contained in Act 82, including language making the availability of the rider to customer generators who apply for net energy metering service from May 17, 2019 through May 31st, 2021, eliminating the 2% net metering threshold language required prior to enactment of Act 82, amending the definition of customer generator, and changing other dates to conform to the new dates established in Act 82. Because Dominion's filings are made to conform its net energy metering tariff to Act 82, I move that the Commission close Dominion's Rider to Retail Rates Second Energy second net energy metering for renewable energy facilities effective May 4th, 2019, and approve Dominion's rider to retail rates, third net energy metering for new renewable energy facilities effective May 16th, 2019. Mr. Chairman, that's my motion.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Belser's motion. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Turning to our utilities agenda, item number 1, docket number 2019-158C. SQF LLC is seeking approval of an investment agreement and an affiliate services agreement, along with a motion for confidential treatment.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Howard.
Chairman, pursuant to South Carolina Code annotated 58-9-310, SQF LLC is seeking approval of an investment agreement with FDC Titleson Investors LLC and an affiliate servicing agreement with Titleson Technology Management, Inc. FDC will own and control a majority of SQF, and Titleson Technology will provide design, engineering, installation maintenance, asset management, and related services regarding network structure. SQF states that this transaction will have no impact on its customers and will provide it with the necessary capital to improve and expand service in South Carolina and the rest of the country. In addition to approval of the merger, SQF also requests confidential treatment of Attachment C and Attachment E to its application. The company asserts that these attachments contain competitively sensitive information. I move we approve the investment agreement and affiliated service agreement. I also move we grant confidential treatment to attachments C and E to the application. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Howard's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 2, docket number 2019-159E. Dominion Energy South Carolina is requesting to expand its turbine maintenance accrual to include the Columbia Energy Center.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Mr. Chairman, by order number 2017-447 dated July 12th, 2017, we granted the request of South Carolina Electric and Gas Company, now Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated, to continue its turbine maintenance accrual until December 31, 2025. As part of its turbine maintenance accrual, Dominion Energy South Carolina includes major operation and maintenance expenses incurred at the Wateree, Williams, McMeekin, Cope, Urquhart, and Jasper electric generating stations. Dominion now seeks authorization to expand its turbine maintenance accrual to include the major operation and maintenance expenses incurred at the Columbia Energy Center, a 540-megawatt combined cycle natural gas fired electric generating facility. As background, by orders number 2005-2 and 2010-471, the Commission approved a levelized amount for turbine and generator maintenance expenses in the company's base rates. The company must record the difference between the levelized amount and the actual amount of turbine maintenance expense incurred. At the time of these approvals, SCE&G did not own Columbia Energy Center, which it was authorized to acquire by order number 2018-272 on May 2, 2018. In support of its request, Dominion states that regularly scheduled maintenance, turbine, and generator maintenance is critical to maintaining the reliability of DESC's coal and natural gas-fired combined cycle generation fleet and preventing destructive and expensive failures in the turbines that power these units. Duke Energy South Carolina relies heavily upon these assets to produce electricity. Mr. Chairman, the addition of the Columbia Energy Center facility to Duke Energy South Carolina's turbine and generator maintenance accrual will not cause the company to request an adjustment to the levelized accrual amount in base rates at this time. Further, any modification to the commission-approved amount of the turbine and generator maintenance accrual will be addressed in the company's next base rate proceeding. The request will not involve a change to any of Duke Energy South Carolina's retail rates or prices or require any change in commission rule, regulation, or policy. I would note the Office of Regulatory Staff recommends approval, and after review, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Whitfield's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 3, docket numbers 2017-207E, 2017-305E, and 2017-370E. Dominion Energy South Carolina is requesting approval of a new form of quarterly service quality reports.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Chairman, by order number 2018-804, this commission ordered the company now known as Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated to provide certain service quality reports on a quarterly basis. For electric operations, the commission ordered the company to provide SAIDI and SAIFI reporting and call center performance metrics reported by the company's North Carolina affiliate. For gas operations, the company was ordered to file quarterly service reports using the metrics of the company's affiliate in Utah. Because the company's South Carolina processes are different in some ways from these affiliates, the company has asked to modify its quarterly service reports to reflect these differences for both the first quarterly service report and all subsequent quarterly reports. Mr. Chairman, I note that the Office of Regulatory Staff does not object to the company's request. As such, I move that we grant the request of Dominion Energy South Carolina to modify its quarterly reports to properly reflect the processes in place in South Carolina. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Belzer.
Mr. Chairman, I have recused myself from these dockets, and I would ask that the record reflect I am not voting on these matters.
We will let the record reflect that you are not voting and are recused. Okay, you've heard Commissioner Williams' motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 4, docket number 1998-433E. Dominion Energy South Carolina is requesting approval of revisions to its electric service and meter installation manual.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Belzer.
In docket 1998-43E, South Carolina Electric and Gas Company, now Dominion Energy South Carolina, is seeking to update its electric service and meter installation manual. The proposed changes include cleaning up obsolete terminology, bringing the manual into compliance with Dominion's practices, and recognizing the corporate name change. The proposed revisions are largely cosmetic and do not significantly change the content of the manual. I do note that the Office of Regulatory Staff has recommended approval. Therefore, I move that the Commission approve the revisions to the manual.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Belzer's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 5, docket numbers 2013-298E and 2016-149E. Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress are seeking Smart Saver modifications.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williams.
In docket numbers 2013-298E and 2016-149E, Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress seek Commission approval to modify their residential energy efficiency programs to improve their cost effectiveness. In February of this year, the companies presented an allowable ex parte briefing to the Commission to provide more information about their proposals. In the briefing, the companies described their energy efficiency appliance and device program, as well as more intensive energy efficiency measures related to HVACs, water heaters, and pool pumps. The presenters also provided information about home energy assessments and energy efficiency educational programs. These programs offer significant benefits to customers in aiding their efforts to reduce household expenses by cutting power consumption. The Office of Regulatory Staff has no objection to these modifications. Accordingly, I move that we approve the proposed modifications to the company's Smart Saver Energy Efficiency programs, as requested. However, based in part on the testimony heard in the upstate during the recent DEC rate case, I also move that the company work with the Commission staff to present a report to the Commission regarding how many customers took advantage of the program, what, if any, savings members of the programs experienced, and any and all customer feedback regarding the benefits and difficulties associated with the program. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Williams' motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Williams a question. As I recall, in the upstate hearings, there were some customer complaints of Duke Energy Carolinas about having a recommended installer or provider, and they were only given one choice, and sometimes that installer or provider was unavailable or unwilling to look into the energy efficiency needs of the customers. Is that what's this direct part of what's being addressed here?
Exactly, Commissioner Irvin. As you just mentioned, we heard testimony that while the program was advertised, well, we heard several things. We heard that while the program was advertised, it was often overlooked. We also heard that there were some difficulties associated with identifying a installer, if you will, who would install the HVAC that met the qualifications for the rebate, and because of that, options were limited, and in some cases there were no options. And so, while energy efficiency programs are definitely important to me and to this commission, we also want to make sure that the programs that are in place are actually effective. And so, my hope is that once that 6-month period passes, the company will be able to report back to the commission with how effective their energy efficiency programs are for our ratepayers.
Thank you. I support the motion as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Irvin.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about Commissioner Williams' motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 6, docket number 2019-127E, joint petition of Fairfield Electric Cooperative, Newberry Electric Cooperative, Tri-County Electric Cooperative, and South Carolina Electric and Gas Company for the assignment and reassignment of territory and approval of agreements to limit corridor rights.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion in this item 6, and this impacts certain areas of Fairfield, Kershaw, and Richland counties, and is very detailed in nature. Mr. Chairman, pursuant to the Territorial Assignment Act, South Carolina Code Annotated 58-27-610 to 690, Fairfield Electric Cooperative Incorporated, Newberry Electric Cooperative Incorporated, Tri-County Electric Cooperative Incorporated, and South Carolina Electric and Gas Company are jointly petitioning for assignment and reassignment of certain territory in Fairfield, Kershaw, and Richland counties. Joint petitioners are also seeking approval of agreements to eliminate corridor rights in the specific areas. The petitioners assert that no customers will be affected by the petition. Mr. Chairman, the joint petitioners maintain this reassignment, and elimination of corridor rights will allow the utilities to avoid wasteful duplication of electric distribution lines and appurtenant facilities to better operate their systems safely. I would also note the Office of Regulatory Staff recommends approval. Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the realignment due to the increasing efficiencies for the utilities customers. The parties are instructed to provide a proposed order.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Whitfield's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 7, docket number 2018-320E. This matter concerns the Office of Regulatory Staff's review letter recommending that Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress be allowed additional time to review the Green Source Advantage programs.
Commissioner Irvin.
Mr. Chairman, on May the 9th, 2019, subsequent to the application and comments filed in this docket, the South Carolina General Assembly passed House Bill 3659, known as the South Carolina Energy Freedom Act. Due to the pending change of law and for judicial economy, I move that the companies be allowed additional time to review and adjust, if necessary, certain aspects of the GSA programs to conform with the provisions of the Act. Subsequent to the company's review, the companies shall inform the Commission of any proposed amendments so that the Commission may conduct an appropriate proceeding to review the GSA programs. So moved.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Irvin's motion. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries.
Item number 8 concerns a presentation on the recently passed House Bill 3659, and we'll hold that till after the transportation agenda. Item number 9, docket number 2018-358WS. We have a petition to intervene.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Mr. Chairman, I would grant the petition to intervene of York County. So move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Hamilton's motion. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 10, docket number 2018-13A. This matter concerns Chem Nuclear's annual filing for adjustments and levels of allowable cost and for identification of allowable cost.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Howard.
I will not be voting. I did not attend the hearing.
Thank you. We'll let the record reflect that Commissioner Howard will not be voting.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Belzer.
I move that the Commission accept cost of $4,746,224 identified by Chem Nuclear as being allowable for recovery for its fiscal year ending June 30, 2018. In addition, I move that this Commission accept and identify as allowable cost for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2019, fixed cost of $3,384,566 and irregular cost of $132,474. I further move that the Commission approve the variable cost rates for fiscal year ending June 30, 2019, as those rates contained in Appendix B to the proposed order filed by the parties. The actual expenses in the variable cost category will be dependent on actual volumes and classes of waste received and will be determined in next year's proceeding. That's my motion.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Belzer's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you.
Turning to our transportation agenda, items number 1 through 5 are new applications that can be taken together. Item number 1, docket 2019-165T, Bonded Affairs Transport, LLC. Item 2, docket 2019-166T, School Wheels Direct, Incorporated. Item 3, docket 2019-168T, Archdale Development, LLC, DBA Charleston Grand Hotel. Item 4, docket 2019-172T, Frogtown Enterprises, LLC, doing business as Frogtown Taxi. And item 5, docket 2019-175T, Fantasy Rides, LLC, Fantasy Party Rides, LLC.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we approve the applications and items 1 through 5 as identified by Mr. Minges. So move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Hamilton's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 6, docket number 2018-302T, request to rescind commission order.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Whitfield.
move that we grant the request of MVP Transport LLC to rescind Commission Order Number 2018-657.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Whitfield's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries.
Item number 7, docket number 2017-114T and 2019-91T, we have a request for suspension.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Urban.
I move that we grant the request of Lou Ellen Warren, doing business as Luxury Limousine Transportation, to suspend Class C Charter Certificate Number 9255 until July 5, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Urban's motion. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries.
Item number 8, docket number 2015-197T, we have a request to cancel.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williams.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the request of Move Buddies LLC to cancel Class E Household Goods Certificate Number 9820. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You heard Commissioner Williams' motion. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 9, docket 2018-368T, we have a request to cancel.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Chairman, I would move that we grant the request of Team Transports LLC to cancel Class C Charter Certificate Number 9419. So move, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you heard Commissioner Hamilton's motion to grant the request to cancel the Class C Charter Certificate in 9419. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item 10, docket number 2018-381T, we also have a request to cancel.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Belzer.
I think we're treating, this motion is being treated as a motion to rescind, and I would move that the commission grant the request of Soda City Movers to rescind Commission Order Number 2019-80 and allow the carrier to resume the use of its previously filed tariff.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Belzer's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 11, docket number 2009-441T, we have a request for reinstatement.
Chairman.
Commissioner Howard.
Chairman, I move we grant the request for reinstatement of Class E Household Goods Certificate at number 9779, filed on behalf of Blue Chip Moving Company, LLC. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You've heard Commissioner Howard's motion. Are there questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries.
And item number 12, docket number 2018-402T and docket 2018-403T, we have a request for an extension of time.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Urban.
I move that we grant the request of ASAP Transportation Services, LLC, for an extension of time until October 30, 2019, to comply with Commission rules and regulations. So
Thank
moved.
you. You've heard Commissioner Urban's motion. Are there questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries.
Turning back to item number 8 on our utilities agenda. This is
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to item number 8, may I correct something?
Yes, ma'am.
On utilities agenda item 9, I have previously recused myself in that docket and failed to put it on the record in this case, and just need to note that I'm recused on that docket. It's item number 9 on the utilities agenda.
Utilities agenda, item number 9.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We'll note that Commissioner Belzer was recused on number 9. Okay, so now we're going to be moving to the presentation on House Bill 3659. We seem to have a little energy lull at the end of that docket, so let's get fired back up here. So this is going to be very interesting. We're going to need to make some decisions.
just for the record, Mr. Chairman, that's non-docketed item number 2019-11E.
Good job. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ms. Boyd.
Good,
Hope you are.
Good. Norman Scarborough, my colleague, and I are going to make a presentation to the commissioners regarding House Bill 3659. I haven't been able to find an act number just yet, so we're just going to, it has, as you're aware, been signed by the governor, so we might continue to refer to it by 3659 at this point. Mr. Scarborough is going to lead off our presentation.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Pleasure to be with you this afternoon. If at any time you have questions, don't hesitate to jump right in and ask them. What we're going to do today is tell you a little bit about this act. It's very comprehensive, but to set the stage, I wanted to start with this little summary of a study that was done by Accenture. It's an accounting and consulting firm. And what they've done is Accenture went out and took a survey, a sample of 3,600 companies, and they evaluated their potential for disruption, the industries in which they operate. How likely are these companies to be disrupted? Disruption, of course, creates many challenges, but it also creates opportunities. And so this chart shows you, this little diagram shows you the results of their disruption study. There are two axes. This axis right here, the vertical one, shows their current level of disruption, and the median, the number that falls in the middle, is right here at 0.51. The scores go from 0 to 1. 1, the higher the score, the closer the score to 1, the higher the level of disruption in that industry. This horizontal axis shows the susceptibility to future disruption. So current disruption on the vertical axis, future disruption on the horizontal axis. The median on the horizontal axis is 0.57. If you'll notice, energy is currently the industry that is most disrupted and has the potential to be disrupted in the future. Now, energy includes basically those companies that are producing oil and gas, right? But if you look a little farther down, but not much farther down, you'll see utilities grouped right in there with banking. The size of the circles, by the way, indicates the size of the companies that are included in the sample in terms of their market capitalization. So what you see here is, let me take you to the next slide. You see that the utilities industry is slightly below average when it comes to current levels of disruption, but above average for future disruption, and that's what this is showing right here. Here's utilities, right across here. Only energy and banking supersede them in terms of disruption. So what you're seeing here is an industry that is going to change rapidly in the future. There are so many factors that are changing this industry. Things from the distributed generation that we're talking about, that you've already talked about today. The proliferation, for example, of electric vehicles, EVs. The experts estimate that right now, electric vehicles make up a little bit less than 3% of all of the new vehicles sold in this year, 2019. In just 6 years, they'll make up almost 22% of the new vehicles sold. You've got battery storage changes taking place there, rapidly taking place. We have so many changes. You can also see the other industries that are being affected. Energy, as we've already pointed out, banking, insurance, capital markets, software, infrastructure. All of those industries have an impact on the utility business. So what we're showing you here is that because this industry is going to be disrupted in the next 10 to 15 years rather dramatically, that means that the utility of the future is going to look very different from the utility of today. And that means that the regulation of that industry, those utilities, is probably also going to have to change dramatically. And that's partially what this Act 3659, Bill 3659 does. So we have set up a timeline here, and Ms. Boyd is going to tell you a little bit about the timeline.
Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners, that we have the timeline is in your handout. It appears at the beginning of the slide deck, and there's the same set as it appears at the end. And what we tried to do as we were reviewing House Bill 3659 was determine deadlines, obligations of this commission, decisions it needs to make, whether it's opening dockets, making a decision, considering or opening generic docket. So we tried to place those on the timeline here, and it's on two different slides. Where you see a question mark, we'll be looking for some feedback from you, because we thought this was a good opportunity to have a discussion with you about what we found. And so we'll go review this again at the end of the presentation.
If you'll notice, there are two deadlines, dates on that timeline that are in red, and that's because they're coming up very, very quickly. And so we will talk about those in detail. The first slide in terms of the act itself, the bill itself, it kind of addresses the general charge to the Public Service Commission. And if you notice, it's quite broad. A look at the opening bullet there. The PSC is to address all renewable energy issues in a fair and balanced manner, considering the cost and benefits to all customers of all programs and tariffs that relate to renewable energy and energy storage, like we were just talking about. It also addresses, as you see, the revenue recovery, cost allocation, and rate design of utilities that it regulates to make sure that those are, as we have seen in the Bluefield and Hope decisions from the U.S. Supreme Court, just and reasonable. So this is a very broad, very comprehensive bill. One of the first requirements is stated here in Section 584120A. And it says within 6 months after the effective date. Now remember, you've heard already that the governor signed this bill into law on May the 16th, 2019, earlier this month. That means November 16th, 2019, and at least once every 24 months thereafter, the PSC shall, as you see, establish or approve each electrical utility's avoided cost rates, avoided cost methodologies. Now remember, avoided cost is simply the marginal cost, the cost of producing one additional unit of power, the marginal cost of a utility's power generation. Avoided cost methodologies, standard offer, power purchase agreements, PPAs, form contract, PPAs, commitment to sell forms, and others.
Mr. Chairman, before we move to the next bullet point here, regarding this section, as Norman has just told you, the Commission is responsible for opening a docket. That's the way the statute reads. Commission shall open a docket for the purpose of establishing each electrical utility standard offer, so on and so forth. So just two issues that we want you to consider. One, we have opened a docket thus far, and that is docket number 2019-176-E. The commissioners can let us know if you think that we should open a docket for each electrical utility. And I was looking back at the definition for electrical utility under this section. It excludes electrical utilities serving less than 100,000 customers for just this renewable energy program section, okay? So that's the first question. One docket or a docket for each electrical utility that falls underneath this section of 3659. And the other is the review after the initial proceedings, at least once every 24 months. Now, I'll say this once, because I know you're aware of this. At the beginning of the year, or the end of each year, our clerk's office opens the same dockets every year, those recurring dockets. For example, each electrical utility has an integrated resource plan docket. For example, Duke Energy Progress's integrated resource plan docket will always be the year and the number 8 and then the letter E. Another docket we open every year are fuel case dockets. So the only number that changes would be the year. And so as we continue to talk, just so you know, our goal, as you continue with these dockets, if you indicate to staff, okay, open a docket annually, we're going to reserve those dockets like we do for those other recurring dockets, so everyone will know basically where to find those relevant related dockets, if that makes sense.
So what we're needing to do right now is decide on if we're going to do every 24 months or every year,
Right.
and then whether we do one generic docket or dockets for each
Yes, sir.
utility.
Yes, sir. We've opened one docket, and that docket will include a notice if you indicate, okay, we're just going to one docket, and it's going to be all inclusive. All the interested parties, including the electrical utilities, then we've already opened that docket, 2019-176E. We have not issued any notices or anything yet. Yes, sir. That's the first issue. Yeah. And then the other, and if you decide to say something to decide today, it's just for you to discuss. And the other is, would you like for staff to just continually open these dockets annually until because the statute does say at least every 24 months.
I think we probably ought to stay with every year. Things change so quickly. So, Commissioner Belser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Boyd, point to me in the statute where we need to decide on whether it's going to be 12 months or 24 months.
It doesn't say this. I didn't say decide. This is merely, I wouldn't call it administrative.
Okay. Do we need to make that decision today?
I don't think you have to.
Okay.
No, ma'am. And we have discussion to decide, and you'll see that throughout our slides. So, no, ma'am, you do not have to, but we wanted to bring to your attention those issues that we think that you, in addition to what you're already thinking about as it relates to the bill, that you might want to say, okay, I see staff where you've already opened a docket. It is our preference that you open multiple dockets to address that issue.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, based on what we've been told thus far, I would, and I'm not making a motion at this time, but I would ask that the commissioners consider a separate docket for each utility, and especially in this first round, if it comes up later that there are common issues pertaining to all the dockets in the interest of judicial economy, at a certain point it could be decided that the dockets could be combined for hearing. But my thought with this is I find it easier to keep track of things related to each utility separately rather than having one huge docket where everything's getting thrown in there. And there could be occasion that something might need to be addressed in Utility A's docket that wouldn't need to be in Utility C's docket, and if they're all combined, it just means you got to notice parties to everyone and every docket, and there could be common parties to all the dockets, there could be individuals interested in one docket and not another. So those are some things that I was just thinking about as she was presenting, and I would ask that y'all, the commissioners, keep that in mind perhaps as we go through this presentation.
So you're saying separate dockets for each one, but in cases where we can have judicial economy combining once we get rolling with this for hearing purposes. Yes. Anybody else got thoughts or questions?
That's just an initial thought.
Commissioner.
Well, cut your mic back on, Commissioner Howard. You turned it back off. Yeah.
Excuse me. I agree with what Commissioner Belcher just pointed out to us, and if we need to go ahead and put a number to them. Maybe we could request that it does be a motion today, and then we would have one for each company. I would assume that's going to be 3.
Yes, sir. I was looking up. I see Lockhart definitely files integrated resource plans, but I have not been able to check on its number of customers, Mr. Hamilton. So could be 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
4.
Okay. So do we need to do a motion and take a vote?
Mr. Chairman, I'll leave that. I'm taking notes. So if you want.
Whatever y'all want to do.
So I
Yeah,
get
whatever.
to decide this.
You do. Yes, sir. You do.
Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Belser.
I was just putting that thought out there for everyone to consider as we go through. I mean, there could be something coming up in the presentation that may want to change our mind, so I would ask that we wait until the end of the presentation before we make a decision on that.
Okay, well, we can do that. Just since you're taking notes,
Yes, sir.
make a note of that, please,
sir.
ma'am,
Yes,
so
sir.
we won't forget.
Yes, sir.
Come back to that if we need to make that decision.
Yes, sir. And then
today,
also.
'cause I know there's some things we need to go ahead and do because of time.
Yes, sir. So the opening documents and the second one, Mr. Chairman, is at least once every 24 months, if you'd like for me to include that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
The second point here is that the legislature has authorized or charged the PSC with approving a standard form purchase power agreement for small power production facilities. And those are the ones that are produce less than 2 megawatts of alternating current. Those, when you have those proceedings, there's one slight change. Normally you will do interventions, discoveries, evidentiary hearings, but this one also includes filed comments or testimonies. We just wanted to point that out to you. Have it underlined so that you will notice it. And the proceedings have to be separate from the electric utilities annual fuel cost proceedings as well. And the law also requires the PSC to treat these small power producers on the same basis as they would treat the electric utilities. Section 584120D says that the PSC shall approve a standard notice of commitment to sell form. So if you notice, what this law does is it requires the PSC to create certain forms all geared towards these small power producers. So this form, this commitment to sell form, it would be like a notice that the small power producer intends to sell energy back to the utility. And so we would need to create a standard form that covers that agreement. Yes.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There must be, quote, standard forms being utilized in other jurisdictions.
Yes, sir, there are.
Have you had a chance to pull any of them yet?
Yes, sir, we have. We found one in North Carolina. The good news is it's actually very short. It's only about 4 pages long. And most of that is, some blanks where you've kind of checked whichever one applies to your particular power producing facility.
And since Duke Energy, of course, would be familiar with that form already.
Yes, sir, they would.
I think the one that we saw, though, had Dominion's name on it.
And Dominion would be familiar with it as well.
I think so, yes, sir. And but Judge Irvin, if you want us to look at specific regions, or we can do that. So,
Well, that would be a starting point.
Yes,
I
sir.
think the adjoining state, has the 2 of the 3 or 4 companies will be familiar with.
Yeah.
And then you can look at other jurisdictions, perhaps in the southeast, Virginia, maybe in Georgia, Florida, if they have them, and just see what's being utilized. But there's no reason to reinvent the wheel if there's already one out there and being utilized.
Yes, sir.
And there's no problems with it. It's probably been in existence for a while.
Yeah, we didn't find a date on the ones that we didn't notice the dates, but yeah, you're right. I think you're exactly right.
Thank you.
Thank you. sometimes the utilities enter into voluntary agreements with these small power generators. And so the law says that you shall receive these purchase power agreements from electrical utilities that are the result of those voluntary negotiations. And again, it applies to those small power producers up to 2 megawatts of alternating current. So that kind of leads to the question of, okay, what is a small power producer? Well, that takes us to PURPA. And if you notice your next slide, it basically just summarizes the 5 major goals of PURPA, and there they are. And one of the ways that PURPA was to accomplish those 5 goals was to create what are called qualifying facilities. And those fall into 2 different categories. One is cogeneration facilities, but the one we're focused on here in this law is the qualifying small power production facilities. And so here's the definition. If you flip the page, you'll see the definition of these small power producers. Now, the law addresses this section of the U.S. Code, so we put that in there. But it's probably a little easier to read the FERC definition in the second bullet. Notice what it says: a small power production facility is a generating facility of 80 megawatts or less, whose primary energy source is renewable. Keyword renewable: hydro, wind, or solar, biomass, waste, or geothermal resources. Section 584120 addresses, again, opening a docket. We are to open a generic document for creating programs for competitive procurement of energy and capacity from renewable energy facilities. So these, again, the idea is to governing how purchases of renewable energy are handled.
I apologize. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'll touch that again. Mr. Chairman, so here, as the statute reads, that it authorizes the PSC to open a generic docket. So we would like some guidance on when, number one, to open the docket, and then perhaps consider whether the commission, or ask the commission to consider, does it want some type of feedback from interested persons regarding more specifically what the commission will address in this generic docket? Maybe an outline, so that when interested persons come in, they aren't, I think more specificity would be helpful here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have a
Commissioner
question for
Williams.
the staff.
Yes, sir.
Do we know how many, like right now today, do we know how many small power producers exist within the state?
I don't know.
We do not.
So do we have, so say we created this generic docket today and opened it for applications. We have no idea how many applications we...
I would think, Commissioner Williams, though, since I think that they receive certification through FERC, that all we would have, perhaps FERC keeps its records for those that are located in South Carolina. I think that would be a great starting point. I don't think it would be hard for us to figure out, especially if they can only operate certain entities if they are. I think FERC. There's an easy way to find that answer.
I think
Mr.
some of these...
Scarborough. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Scarborough, how would you define competitive procurement?
To me, that would be an open market process where you might have various small power producers maybe submitting bids, maybe as a result of an RFP from the utility.
And so, in your opinion, does this law give the commission the authority to decide who's awarded a contract and who isn't?
I don't see the law specifying that. I think the utility is the one who would make that call. I think the commission is charged with establishing the framework within which that takes place.
And once again, the states are close by have a process that they're following.
Yes, sir.
North Carolina already has one in place. So it seems to me that logical to find out what those policies and procedures are, since three or four investor-owned utilities doing business in South Carolina will be familiar with that process.
So they operate in those states as well.
This is one we could probably come back to in 2 weeks at our next meeting, don't you think? I mean, after looking at some of the things that Commissioner Irvin and Commissioner Williams were talking about. Is that?
Yes, sir. We can definitely do our best to find out how many small power producers are currently operating in South Carolina. And
There's some of these things we need to accomplish today, but some we need a little more.
Yes, sir.
A little more study.
Yes, sir. And
we
also,
can make a really informed decision.
yes, sir.
It's Commissioner Belser.
Ms. Boyd, is there, or Mr. Scarborough, is there a timeline to establish this docket?
For this particular one, I don't.
No,
It's
we,
just-
no, there is not a
Just
deadline.
providing authorization, it's not even a mandatory, is it?
It's not, and Commissioner Belso, you are correct. There are a couple of items, for example, where you'll see where it mentions the commission promulgating regulations. We just wanted to put it in the outline.
Right, I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
But as the chairman has indicated, there's not necessarily the
A debt.
urgency with this one
Yes, ma'am.
that there are with some of the others.
Yes, ma'am.
That's true.
We're just trying to get them all on the table so that we're ahead of the game instead of catching up.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Commissioner Whitfield.
could I ask the staff, I think this may have come up already, but do you know, I guess you're aware, FERC is still yet to rule on its radius of these facilities, of these QFs.
Oh, okay.
And do we know how that might impact this new act, South Carolina Act, that is?
It certainly could have an impact. We will look into that as well.
Thank you.
Good point. Thank you for making note of that.
Okay, thank you.
The next point, while we're talking about these PPAs, these power purchase agreements, there are some options here that the PSC shall consider, it says, prohibiting. And so you see those in the two sub-bullets. I won't go through all the details there, but just wanted you to have a summary of those points. These are things that the PSC shall consider in evaluating or establishing these PPAs for these small power producers, should you prohibit those certain types of activities. And there they are. If you look at section 5841.20, what you will see here is a time limit. Again, subject to the Commission's approval, electric utilities will offer these fixed price PPAs. And if you notice the time horizon there, commercially reasonable terms and a duration of 10 years. Now, if you look at the next bullet, you can actually go longer than 10 years. The law allows you to establish a reasonable fixed price power purchase agreements with durations that last beyond 10 years if you choose to do so. You see additional terms, conditions, and/or rate structures as proposed by intervening parties. The last point I want to make here with this slide is that this subsection that we're looking at right here applies only to those small power producers who have interconnection agreements already on file with the utility as of May the 15th, 2019. In other words, they would be grandfathered in. Questions? The next slide describes another charge to the PSC. This one involves basically hiring a third party, a consultant, if you will, to create a report on the calculation of each utility's avoided cost for the purpose of these proceedings. And the law states that PSC cannot use the same independent third party that ORS does. Another deadline on the next slide, Section 584130A, says within 120 days. Now, if you notice, this one's approaching rather rapidly. That's why we may need to address this today. Within 120 days, that would be September the 13th, 2019, each electrical utility shall file a proposed voluntary renewable energy program for the Commission to review and approve.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, well, based on this slide, our concern is how do we initiate this action? We have not opened a docket on this at this point, so that's the first thing. If you want to consider how many dockets, and then how do we go about instructing the utilities, what means, what tools to make this filing?
We'll certainly entertain some conversation about that. I think we've decided on when we're opening dockets, we need to open separate docket for each utility and then combine them if we can in places that make sense. Commissioners, any thoughts on this?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Irvin.
We can use our current notice provisions and then create a notice and a request from each electrical utility to file their proposed voluntary renewable energy program within 30 days. If they need an extension of time, they suppose they could request one. But for review and approval, and then also, that would trigger the time for other things to happen, any intervenors, the matter being set for hearing. And you may want to stagger them out so that all three of them don't come in at the same time. That's the first thought. But again, the notice provisions under the code and the regs should be sufficient without, since they haven't told us exactly what we need, we can just use what's in place, I would think. Do you agree?
Makes good sense.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Williams.
Just a question for the staff. Reading this section, neither of you interpret it to put that 120-day deadline for the approval.
No, sir.
Okay.
We see it as the utilities have to file within 120 days.
Right. Yes, sir. I was going to read in the staff
go
that
right
part.
ahead.
It just says within 120 days, and then there's some language. Each electrical utility shall file the proposed voluntary renewable energy program for review and approval by the Commission. And then it says the Commission shall conduct a proceeding to review the program and establish reasonable terms and conditions for the program.
So arguably, I mean, that first section puts the utilities on notice that there's an expectation.
Yes, sir.
For them to have something.
They have to file by September 13th, but you don't have to approve or make any decisions by that deadline.
Commissioner Irvin, I would ask, would you have any heartburn about allowing that deadline that's listed there, September 13th, 2019, being the Commission's deadline, just to give the utilities ample opportunity to produce?
I think that's wise to do it that way. On or before, you could say on or before September 13, 2019, close of business that each utility as defined under the Act shall file a proposed voluntary renewable energy. And then once the filing period has expired, then we go forward with the normal process.
Mr. Chairman and Judge Irvin, I need to ask a question. Okay, there's a section also, subsection F, that says that the Commission determines an electrical utility already has that type program, a voluntary renewable energy program, on file with the Commission as of the effective date of this chapter that conforms with the requirements of this section. The utility is not required to make a new filing to meet the requirements of this section. Would you like for us in that notice then to state that language, and then they can file the letter that basically says they'd like for the Commission to consider whether or not they're in conformance?
Yes, if they take the position that they are in conformance with this statutory requirement, then they're required to affirmatively tell us
yes, sir,
in writing that what they're relying on.
Then do we have proceedings after that, or
Yes.
is it?
It does say the commission shall conduct a proceeding to review the program and establish reasonable terms and conditions for the program. Yes, sir.
And you notice the last bullet, you may periodically hold additional proceedings.
Mr. Chairman, I also like to point out it also seems to give interveners a right to participate. So arguably, if the utility suggests that it has a program already on file, there may be argument from an intervener that, well, maybe it could be a little better. Is that a possible?
I think you're right. I think that's a possibility. And I don't want to belabor this, but I'm wondering if we have to, I think you have perhaps make the decision with 120. I think you do.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that the decision has to be made within 120 days, Ms. Boyd.
Okay.
And what I would suggest is that we, piggybacking off of what's already been said, that we do a notice or a letter, or however we're going to do to the utilities of the docket. And it seems that if once the utility either makes its filing of its proposed voluntary renewable energy program for review, or under Section F, they come in and say, we already have one and we think that this complies and you need to look at it, that would be the point to notice the application to other parties to begin the process of a hearing. Is that correct?
I see. Yeah.
I mean, there needs to be something for parties to review. I mean, that's just something to consider.
Good point.
So we might want to look at it in those in that light.
I think what you're saying is draft a letter to each utility. We put it on it'll be public. We'll publish it on the DMS, but not issue a notice until after we receive the filings.
That's, I mean, well, just when you look at Section A, the 120 days, I think in the first sentence, said that's the time for the electrical utility to file its proposed program. And then the commission shall conduct a proceeding. Well, the proceeding, once they file it, then interested parties need the opportunity to intervene. They don't have anything to intervene on until it's filed.
That's true.
That makes sense.
And then if the company comes back under F, now this is just talking, and so y'all may disagree with me and point out the fallacies of what I'm saying in 2 weeks, but then they come back under Section F and say, wait a minute, we've already got this program and we submit our current program for your review. And at that point it's noticed under that and for intervention.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Boyd.
Mr. Hamilton.
September the 13th, a fixed date that everything's got to work around.
I think it's our conservative date.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We counted.
We counted.
On these we counted from May 16th because if it included days instead of months, we actually counted the number of days from the day the governor signed the bill. So that's the number. That's the date.
That's the date that we've got to live with.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the date by which the utility has to file its. Now, I would say this, and this may be allowable, and it just pops into my mind. If they're filing a new program, they've got 120 days. If they're coming in under F saying we have an existing program that we think suffices, I think in whatever letter is sent out, we need to know about it. We don't need to wait till
the deadline.
Till the deadline to tell us they've got an existing program. I think we need to go ahead and hear about that beforehand. So it's just something to think about.
Okay.
But let's look back at the statute and make sure
Yes, ma'am.
we're compliant if we can.
So do we need to decide this
I'll make a
today
motion.
exactly? Okay.
I'll make a motion
Ready on this one?
that we do a separate docket for each one and notify the utilities of, I'm sure they're already aware, but to cover ourselves, that we notify the utilities of the requirements of the act, and then we'll have to wait for their response.
Okay, we've got a motion from Commissioner Belzer. Are there anybody else got comment or question on that motion?
I just wonder if in the motion if this is a fixed date, do we need to mention this date that we've got to have the information prior to that time?
Commissioner, I think that the more information that can be put in the letter or the whatever we're going to send to the utilities, giving them our expectations, the better. And I think really what's going to happen is just going to reference the act and the sections and pertinent language. And
Well, if we
the
have
September,
the freedom,
the
excuse me.
September 13th date is not in the act. They've added that for our edification, but it would say within 120 days of the effective date of this chapter, which is May 16th, is how it would be worded.
Suggest we use this date to have a deadline and something to work with.
Okay, increase, add that into the letter. Thank you. Yes, sir, Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Belser, are you also open to, or do you think we need to put an amendment for the ones who already have a program in place, maybe 60 days out prior to that September 13 date, like the Act says in Section 584140, within 60 days, July 15, PSC shall open a docket for each one. Do you want to also maybe assign a date close to that for the utilities that already have an existing program, so they don't come up, like you said, and give us a letter at the end letting us know they're going to let their existing program act as...
I think that's the next
You're looking
point.
at community
Yeah.
solar programs.
Okay,
We're
okay.
still on, we're
That's
still on
different.
voluntary.
Okay, well, do you want to assign a date regardless? Do you want it 30 days out, 60 days out of that September 19th date, September 13th date, or you made a comment you didn't want them to come up at the end, and
Under 58
That's paragraph F.
4130F.
Yeah, F.
I mean, I think that if they have a renewable, there should be language in there saying, please notify us within, 30 or 45 days. If they've got an existing program they think complies, they can let us know. I would think they should be able to let us know very quickly. If they can't, I'm sure they'll let us know they can't.
well, that's my question. Do you want to assign a date to that, or number of days?
I'm open to suggestions. What do you want to say, 30, 45 days?
45 days.
All right, let's say 45 days then. Add that to the notice for programs, for utilities that already have a program.
All under paragraph
And
F.
everybody else,
We stagger, right? I think Judge Irvin mentioned
You
that.
said
Stagger the remaining.
Stagger.
well, I mean, all this is for reporting, whether you're going to report a new program or if you already have a program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, September 13th is to file a proposed program. If you've already got a program, we want to do it 45 days before. Is that correct? Or we want to do that earlier. We don't want to wait. If someone has a program already, Commissioner Belser was saying she didn't want them to wait until
August.
until right then, September 13th, to go ahead and give them 45 days from whenever we file the letter to get that to us.
On the date of the letter from
Yeah.
us? Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Do that.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Any other
I will
comments
note that if they feel like they don't have sufficient time, I don't know that the utility's ever been shy about asking for additional time. So.
Okay. Anything else we need to add on that motion? You got a question, Ms. Boyd? You
Yes,
look
sir, I
like you do.
Help us out. Go ahead.
Well, okay. I understand if the company has an existing program, then they have 45 days from the date of the PSC letter. What if they don't? That's where I was
Then
going
they
to.
Then they've got until the 13th.
They have the
Then
120
they have till
days.
September the 13th.
All right. And remember, we talked about staggering those days, right? So you didn't receive all those filings at one time. I thought that's what he was saying.
I think we were talking about staggering the dates for proceedings, right?
Yes, unless we're going to consolidate, but I'll leave that to your judgment.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to. Do the other rules? Does the other statute still apply concerning the number of days? Is it 6 months from the date of filing? Is that
For you
statute?
to make a ruling,
Yes,
Judge? I don't recall seeing that in this
That's
section.
it's in there.
That's only on a rate.
That's
case.
only on the rate.
That's on a rate,
Yeah.
so maybe we don't need to stagger.
Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. Anything else on that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you look at the next slide, it addresses the law addresses community solar programs, and here's another deadline, again, you see it in red. This is the one we've calculated. This was a stated number of days as well. And it shows up, it pops up on July the 15th, which is about 47 days away. So not very long at all. The idea here is to open a document, or the requirement is to open a document to review each utility's community solar program. And then 180 days later, after the commission opens that docket, the utilities must update their reports and propose any new community solar programs that they might have.
Okay, so on this one, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we've already opened a docket, but I know what we have to do. I know. We'll have to open perhaps a separate docket for each utility, or we need you to please consider that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion.
Williams.
I have a motion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we, pursuant to Section 58-41-40, paragraph B, subparagraph 1, I move that we open a separate docket for each utility regarding a review of their community solar programs by July 15th, 2019.
Okay, we've got that motion from Commissioner Williams to open separate dockets. Is there any question or comments on that motion? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Now, we also have we've got to do something else with this too, right?
Right.
I think
as
so.
we've talked.
Yes, sir.
And I would move that once the docket is open, that the clerk shall within 30 days notify the electrical utility that they shall update their community solar program and a written report outlining their existing programs and any proposal for new programs within 180 days.
Got 180?
That's what it says on here. Once the docket's open, I suppose we have discretion to shorten the time, but I don't know that we do. Is that a statutory provision?
Yes, sir. I think part of it, Judge Irvin, is for you. It just depends on how you read it. If we're to open the docket and then for each to review their community solar programs and solicit status information, and then I thought the second part was for them to update it, update their information. So
let's see if we can shorten it, and that way, if anybody needs an extension of time, I'm sure they'll ask for it.
Or do we need to get information like in an ex parte before that? Somewhere before the end of June or somewhere before this July 15th
I think
date for them to present information to us.
Now that's my interpretation of it. The commission shall open a docket for each electrical utility to review the community solar programs established pursuant to Act 236 and to solicit status information on existing programs from electrical utilities.
And it doesn't say after 180 days, it says within.
Yes, sir.
So that gives us some discretion.
Yes.
Yes,
So I
sir.
think the sooner the better, and if they need more time, they can ask for it.
Okay.
But once you open the docket, let's
All
say
right.
if you open the docket tomorrow, then you tell me how much time you need to send out a notice to the affected utilities to submit their report on their existing program and then propose any new programs.
I think 30 days is
All right.
sufficient. Yes, sir. That's
Amend my motion then to within 30 days they shall. And if they need an extension of time, they'll let you know. They may have nothing new in the hopper. If so, I'm sure they'll tell us.
Okay, and then if I may, Mr. Chairman, the 180 days, I think we'll need to schedule some type of proceeding for them to update the commissioners.
You're talking a proceeding like an ex parte or what?
Well, I think it depends. If we have interveners, we may have to set a hearing.
Right.
If we don't have interveners, then we could probably handle allowable ex parte.
I have a suggestion then. Why don't then, after we receive their information, we bring this back for your consideration?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you. The next section addresses.
All right, wait a minute.
I think we've got a pending motion.
Yeah, and I'm not sure
Sorry.
where we are on all that because I had people in both ears.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't you.
You do have a pending motion.
We've already adopted, if you're on the community solar programs, Commissioner Williams' motion essentially
Right.
adopted the first section, and my motion is addressed to the second bullet point. And we decided that we have 180 days, but it doesn't have to be that long. So within 30 days, after these dockets are opened for each utility, pursuant to 584140B1, the electrical utilities shall update their community solar programs in a written report and propose any new programs on a written filing.
Okay. So that's Commissioner Urban's motion.
My motion.
All right, we got questions or comments on Commissioner Urban's motion?
30, and if they need time, an extension, they can ask for it. But obviously, we don't want it to go past 180 because that's what the statute apparently requires.
That's 180 days for them to file. I don't think it's 180 days for you to decide.
Right, I agree. But we wouldn't want to grant more than 3 or 4 extensions, then we passed 180. So if somebody needs more time, for example, if, let's say, one of the utilities is in the process of designing a new program, it's not yet ready to be rolled out, they can tell us that and say, we need an additional 30 days. So that's an example of how that would work.
Okay.
If they have them ready, they can file them immediately.
Any other questions, comments on Commissioner Urban's motion? Okay, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next part of the law addresses just and reasonable rates. And basically, if you see this first bullet talks about it prohibits subsidizing one customer class with another customer class. And then the second bullet down here requires at least one, you see it there, a minimum of one reasonable rate option that allows customers to achieve bill savings with some kind of long-term reductions. It includes, but is not limited to, like time of use pricing. Questions?
This section just seems to give us guidance on what the General Assembly has, how they define just and reasonable rates under this section. So I don't think we need to take any action on it.
Nope.
And so maybe we can move to net metering.
Yes. Net metering. Again, this is a requirement. The PSC is to establish solar choice metering requirements. There is a date here, no later than January 1st, 2020. The PSC shall open a generic document to do these two things, to investigate the cost and benefits of current net metering programs and to establish a methodology for calculating the value of the energy that those customer generators would produce. So you might have how much is the utility going to credit a customer who has solar panels on his or her home?
So all we've got to do is open a docket, right, on this?
Before January 1st, 2020.
I think we have, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
You've already opened a generic docket on
we
this.
have.
But does it have to be for all different ones?
Good point. We just opened one. For
Okay.
generic dockets, though, typically the commission opens one docket because it's a generic docket. Typically.
Okay.
So, and if you decide to do that this time, we've opened docket number 2019-182-E. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the docket's open. Is that all we need to decide on this right now?
Yes, sir. We can leave this one still but open if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, just to discuss when you would like for us to schedule that.
Gotcha. So we'll talk about that in 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The next slide just talks about some of the factors to consider. Here's a laundry list, if you will, in evaluating the cost and the benefits of the net metering program. So again, no action necessary there. Just wanted to summarize the factors that the PSC is to consider, shall consider. And again, we tried to emphasize the shall, the requirements, underlining shall everywhere it appears in the law. The next slide also addresses net metering. The issue here is every year we have to update the value of the energy produced by those customer generators, and every 5 years evaluate the methodology for determining that value. Does that make sense?
Right. So.
We just put that. That's just another action item, Mr. Chairman.
All right. But that's what we're going to do, right? It's
Yes.
what it says right there.
Well, this
Or
one,
do we need to?
This is just a note that for us to remember that the value must be updated annually, and then the
Right.
methodology revisited every 5 years. So we can talk about the next meeting, how you want us to docket that
Okay.
later on.
Okay.
Just to make sure we don't forget about it.
Okay. So we'll add that to the
2 weeks.
to the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
The next one talks about solar choice. This is section 5840-20. The Commission, again, shall establish a new solar choice metering tariff for customer generators who to go into effect for applications received after May 31st of 2021. There is also a requirement to establish a minimum guaranteed number of years to which those solar choice metering customers are entitled. And third bullet, there's nothing here that prohibits the Commission from establishing similar tariffs for other renewable energy resources such as wind, geothermal, and others.
We just included that because when you open or just address the solar choice metering tariff, you might instruct staff, okay, well, we also want you to open other dockets related to biomass or wind or whatever. So that's why we included that for us to remember.
Okay. You're talking about that last.
The last bullet.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do we need to decide anything on that first bullet, or wait till?
I think we can wait,
Wait.
Mr. Chairman. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
The next part that the law addresses deals with leases. Many customers would be leasing their equipment as opposed to purchasing. And these are just some of the exemptions that the law requires. It talks about single premises that are not interconnected with a utility, facilities that are owned by a customer generator but financed by a third party, and then, of course, standby emergency services. But it also points out that the PSC may promulgate regulations consistent with this section, interpreting the scope of these exemptions as to the electric utilities, not the small power producers, not the individual premises, but to the electric utilities themselves. So again, we can put that on the agenda for 2 weeks if you so desire.
So is that, and we're talking about a generic proceeding on that, or a generic docket on that, or?
I think that's a good point, Mr. Chairman. I do
Yes.
think that the commission would welcome comments about the scope of that regulation, the substance of it, recommendations, because I think it would be helpful. So when we get to that point, when we're ready to, before we issue a notice of drafting, perhaps seek some comments about what the content, the substance of that regulation should be.
Okay. Okay. Anybody got any comment on that?
May I ask a
Yes, Commissioner Belzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Boyd, do you have, what's your advisory committee called?
It's just the PSC Advisory Committee.
Is there a meeting of that advisory committee scheduled anytime soon?
We can schedule it any time.
Well, don't you normally do a notice of what may be discussed at that?
We do. We do.
Could you consider maybe implementing or calling an energy or an advisory committee meeting and report back at the next meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Would you recommend that we bring up some of these same topics that we can, like the regulations, the generic dockets?
I think that it would be helpful to discuss it with those
Okay.
individuals that participate in that. They always come up with some good ideas, or in my experience, they have come up with some good ideas. So,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on one second. Okay, is the next thing on our agenda the IRPs?
Yes.
And we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in 5 or 10 minutes.
Randy, hey. Hello? Randy? Hey. I'm sorry? Yes. I don't know. No. I mean, yeah, I haven't written as much about this deliberation just because most of it is kind of beyond the layperson's scope and certainly mine too. So I right now I'm at right now I'm at 1,700 words, so about 5 pages, so anywhere from between 7 to 10 minutes, I would say. Is that all right? Okay, great. Thanks.
I think it'd be a good idea before we get to, when we get in this thing, to have a
Randy, yes. Sure.
Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order. And we're going to, we realize we've
getting a lot of
gone
back-
longer and we got rules to show cause, 2 dockets there. We do have one thing more on this that we need to take some action on, and then we're going to continue with the this presentation in 2 weeks. So, Ms. Boyd and Mr. Scarborough, you will.
Mr. Chairman, just one other issue I think that we want to address with you today, and that's section 5827-460D.
Yeah, and what this requires,
Page 29.
if you look at page 29, slide 29 in your packet, you'll see this. It deals with the PSC being required to establish reasonable guidelines for interconnection timelines. And if you'll notice, there's again in bright red, August the 16th of 2019, where the PSC has to deliver a system impact study to all interconnection customers that execute a system impact study agreement prior to August 16, 2019, after the effective date of this act. So we have very limited amount of time to do this.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, would you, just as a suggestion, perhaps open 4 dockets again and send instructions to the utilities regarding that particular section, perhaps, and then we can discuss further as to how you're going to approve or establish those guidelines in 2 weeks. Is that okay?
So moved.
Okay. Okay.
We got it.
Mr. Chairman, we really, really, really appreciate your indulgence, you and the commissioners today, and we will come back in 2 weeks, follow up.
Yeah.
Still got it.
Okay, yeah, all right, we've got a motion on that. Anybody, questions or comments? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We need to go back to the very first thing quickly that Commissioner Belzer had wanted us to hold off
Okay.
on, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Mr. Chairman, with regard for the dockets under section 584120, I move that we open a docket for each utility subject to that section. Is that what
What page are you on, please?
well, I was referring to
That
the,
very first thing we did.
to the code section, but
Right.
it is,
It's on slide 7 too, Commissioner Belzer.
thank you,
Okay.
that we open 4 dockets and not just 1.
Anybody got questions on that? Opening 4 dockets instead of just 1, or open a docket for each utility? Okay, if not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion carries.
We'll come back to the other issue about every 24 months in 2 weeks, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you both. Okay. Now we'll need to adjourn the business meeting, and we'll start the rule to show cause in just a moment.